Do you know what the number one single most important nutrient is for your meat rabbits? I'll give you a hint. It's not any of the things that you see here. The single most important nutrient in your rabbit's diet is water. So the University of Michigan, I came across some things in some articles I was reading that they were putting out, and they were saying they consider water the single most important nutrient in your rabbit's diet. But it's something that we don't usually think of so much as a nutrient. And, they make the point that a lot of people don't think of water as a quote unquote nutrient because, well, for one, we don't think of it as like a source of vitamins, minerals, calories, fat, protein, any of those things. And certainly it's not a source of a lot of those things. And we tend to think of it not as a nutrient or necessarily a part of the diet because it is cheap or free. Now, I am going to say before anyone has to comment, I would not agree that water is free. Certainly if you live in an arid climate with no groundwater, water is probably on your mind an awful lot for, any outdoor growing and for all of your animals as well. And if you're on a municipal water supply, well, I am lucky enough that I have never had to rely on a municipality for my water, but I've seen some of my family's water bills, and they would certainly never call water free. And even me, I'm on a well. We have an excellent source of water here, really great quality water, and lots of it. We're really blessed that way. But I also would not call that free because, if you had to pay for my well or the pumps or any of the utilities and pieces of equipment that go into getting that into that bucket, you wouldn't call it free. But, I get it. We do think of water as cheap or free, a lot of us, or at least we take it for granted and don't think a lot about it. And so we tend not to think of it so much as a part of the diet for our animals, but it is. So there are actually a few places in the rabbit's diet where they get water and hydration. And the first and foremost will just, it's the drinking water. It's the water that we provide to them every day to drink. And we need to make sure that we're providing plenty of it. Rabbits need twice as much water as they do food, and that's under the best of conditions. So you can count on your rabbits, if you're trying to come up with a measurement, an amount of water to give to your rabbits, count on giving them twice as much as you do in feed. So if you're feeding a cup a day of pellets to your rabbits, they need at least 2 cups of water. And I would say probably more than that, probably more like 3, just to cover your bases. If you're coming in the morning and however you're watering your animals, if you're using crocks or cage cups and they're dry and empty, and if it's not because they're a menace that likes to tip things over, then they're not getting enough water to go for the length of the day between your waterings. So you either need to give larger vessels, more vessels, or you need to water more frequently during the day. During periods of high heat and, when they're being challenged by the weather, that amount can go up to 3 to 4 times as much water in a day. So 3 to 4 times more water than food. So obviously something that's very important, and we need to make sure they have water so that they are moving that food through their digestive system so they're not getting into a state of stasis, and so that they continue to eat, digest, and grow. I've even seen it, and I can't say where the link is, but I've seen it said before that if rabbits don't have water, they won't eat. So if you're concerned about your growth rate and the health of your rabbits, you got to make sure they've always got plenty of water available to them to fulfill their needs. So dietary water is the first place that it's coming from. And by that, I mean the water we provide to them. They also do get some moisture, some water from their feed, whether it's pellets or hay. All of it has at least some moisture in it. You know, if this hay didn't have any moisture, it would be dust. It would not hold together. So they do get a little bit of water from that, but it's not something you want to rely on. You want to rely on the water you're giving them. That said, if you are someone who feeds or supplements with fresher foods and forage, so maybe fresh grass, or if they're out on tractors, or if you're supplementing with extra vegetables from your garden, it is possible that they could take in more water from some of those foods, and they may drink a little bit less liquid water, but again, offer it to them. It's no harder to fill that cup full than it is to fill it half full, so you know, we're just going to go overboard with the water. And then there's actually metabolic water, and metabolic water is water that is produced by the rabbit's body through its various processes of digestion and whatever else goes on in the rabbit's body. But again, it's not really something that you can count on as, say, like a source of water. It's more just something interesting to know. So if you're looking to put some measurements, like I said, at least twice as much in water as food, but if you kind of want to put some measurements to that, practically speaking, 8 ounces is a cup. So if you're feeding 8 ounces of food, you want at least 2 cups of water. 24 ounces, 3 cups, and then 4 times the feed in the high heat. And then, so this translates into about a quart of water per day per adult rabbit. It translates into about 2 cups a day per weaned kit, and a cage with the doe and the kits, you can expect them to need to go through a gallon of water per day. But something to keep in mind is that those amounts are per rabbit. So if you have any grouped, like here, I'm watering this cage twice a day, come out in the evening, make sure that that's topped off and that they're not out of water. I'll top it off when I'm done here because there's 4 in there. So, I need to keep that in mind that those, typically I would do 1 dish per rabbit. It can get to be a bit much in some of those cages, and honestly, next week I may do that. I may throw more waterers into some of these because we're expecting some really high heat. If I'm not going to be around during the day, I'm definitely going to do that, but usually I'm here so I can come out 2-3 times a day and just double check and top off water. But again, you just want to keep in mind that that's per rabbit. So if you have grouped cages, you need to water accordingly in those cages. There are a lot of processes that the rabbits need the water for, and that is for waste processing and removal. They lose a lot of water through that. They lose a lot of water through breathing and respiration, especially if it's hot and they're panting. Typically, ears are where rabbits are going to release their heat and radiate the heat. But when it gets too hot that they're not keeping up that way, they will pant. And in that case, they could be actually evaporating a lot more water from their body. Water quality matters. That is another point that the University of Michigan made. Water quality matters, and rabbits don't care to drink stale water. Obviously, you can only do what you can do, and you can't keep it a constant flowing source all day long. But we should be changing out water every day, maybe twice a day if it's really hot. But, a lot of that is if it's really hot, a lot of times they're kind of taking care of that for you because they're going through it. They're drinking it. So you come in, you top it off, provide some new fresh water, and they should be good to go as long as it is in front of them. The temperature, actual ambient temperature, can change how much rabbits will drink, and the water temperature can change how much rabbits will drink, and that can change depending on the weather. So in the winter, rabbits prefer to have water that is above freezing. Now that might sound obvious because freezing water is ice, right? But the closer it is to freezing, the less they're going to kind of want to drink of it. And also the one thing they said to be careful of in the winter which is interesting, is that if they're only getting open liquid water once a day, that can be a problem because they're going to drink as much as they can during that period. And then they've got a lot of cold water in their body, and they've got to put more of their feed energy into warming that water up and warming up their body. So those are some things to keep in mind. And then in the summer, which, you know, right now we're starting to go into the throes of summer, they want cool water. You know, they definitely want it down below 90 degrees. If you can keep the water at least a few times a day between 40 and 70, they'll be much happier and they'll drink more of it. A couple other interesting things to know are that your water actually can, so, you know, we started this off by saying it's the single most important nutrient, and it actually does have some nutrients in it. But of course, this could be different for everybody, and it's not really something that is measurable unless you're literally going to have your water tested. But if you have, you know, there are minerals in water, so that can be a source of some of the trace minerals that your rabbits need in your diet. So a good, clean, quality water source is really important and actually can be a nutrient. So I encourage you to come over again to meetrabbits.org, because there is an article accompanying this that lays even more details out, lays this out in kind of a more organized manner probably. But it's worth reading. It has some interesting tidbits and facts in there that just are the things that we don't think about very much when we think about water. Easy to take for granted. We all know they need it, but how much do we really think about it and think about why and how much and things like that? So just thought maybe for today we'd shine a light on that and highlight water as the important nutrient that it is and the important place that it has in the meat rabbit diet. So again, you know, like, share, subscribe here. Questions and comments are always welcome. And come on over to meetrabbits.org and check out more of the article and information there. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.